Good evening, awesome people. Well, incest is a terrible thing. Sometimes it happens on purpose, which is a whole different animal, but in many cases, it happens purely by accident. So, I'm going to tell you about a very painful story of somebody I know whose identity will remain undisclosed, who ended up in an incestuous relationship. And this was a returnee with his own blood sister, purely by accident. And his is a cautionary tale for those of us who raise kids away from home, something that I hope we can all learn from. This is not a fun story, but it is something that is important for those of us who have children elsewhere and likely have children that might be coming back to Kenya at some point. You gotta listen to this. But as always, before we get into the meat of it, this is Kisumu Karateng in Western Kenya, friends. We love this place. We absolutely love spending time in the village. We are deep in the village. However, we're only 20 minutes from Kisumu CBD and 15 minutes from the airport. So it's an amazing place. And if you are running into my channel for the first time, this is Bonodede. I'm a Kenyan American who loves the village like crazy. The village is basically my everything. This is all I've ever wanted. In fact, if this is it for me, I think I would go very happy, knowing that I spent the best part of my life living in the village. So again, if you're running in my channel for the first time, please add your name to it, subscribe. All you gotta do is check if you're amongst the subscribers, and if not, add your name to it because your support really goes a long way. And also, I help people who are interested in moving back to Africa, whether you are somebody who is not African, whether you are an African who wants to come back to the continent, I help with that. Most of my work involves construction. I help people build structures, the one you see behind here. I help people find land, architects, designers, and things like that. So my number is below. Reach out if you need to consult. I'm happy to connect you, of course, to people who know way more than I do. But it's an evening. It's a Sunday evening, and the weather is so calm. I think my neighbors are burning their garbage, and so it's a little bit of smoke here. But it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm just chilling on our front porch. And Sundays, I try to have a slow day unless there's something that I need to take care of. So today, I went to church with my mom, and then we went to another meeting, and then from that meeting, we had lunch. And then from there, I went to another community meeting, had a fantastic discussion with my folks, and I am just loving being a true villager, back to my roots. The idea that I've just been running around the village the whole day today, just talking to people, meeting new folk, reacquainting myself. It is fantastic, folks. So join us, join us. My job is to make this so lucrative. You're going to want to come and join us here, folks. So anyway, let's go back to the subject of the day. Incest, for those who don't know what that is when you end up having intimate relations with somebody with whom you are biologically related. Now, for the most part, this is something that everybody understands is really bad news. And I'm not just talking about the moral part of it. Morally, we are socialized to stay away from that. But even when you think about the biological consequences of incest, it is insane. I used to work in Western Pennsylvania many years ago, and the town I lived in, right, about 10 minutes outside town, you run into Amish country. And some of these communities are so closed off that people tend to marry within the same circle. I'm telling you, the level of disabilities in those communities are intense. So communities that tend to marry within the same circle, you just end up concentrating the best and the worst of what your gene pools offer. In my family, we are like the definition of asthma. In every family in my larger community, somebody has asthma. And so things like that can be really concentrated if you marry within or if you end up in incestual relationships. And so diseases like sickle cell, asthma, I would say maybe diabetes to some extent, there are lots of biological problems that humans have that you can very easily pass along when people marry. So most normal people already know you stay away from intimate relations with people that you might be biologically related to. However, unfortunately, in the communities where we live, there are family members, there are people who are just terrible humans who end up raping family members. So that's incest on purpose. And that's not what I'm going to talk about today. That's a whole different ballgame. What I'm talking about here is a young man who lived abroad for some time. I'll not mention his name. After many years, he came back, met a girl in Nairobi, and they got a job, started living, and after I think maybe 3 years, they already had 2 kids. So at some point, they had decided, their relationship had gone so far, they wanted now to introduce things formally. So he takes his girl with his 2 kids back to the village. And they are welcome because the entire family was expecting to meet this new girl and the grandkids that are not. So everybody excited, there's cooking, there's people having fun. Uh, so as always, it is very customary that when you bring a partner in African communities, there's going to be some interview that's going to happen. Not necessarily as a matter of checking whether somebody is worthy or not. It's more about getting to know somebody. So if a man brings a woman home, people are going to ask questions, especially the parents are going to ask questions just to get to know her properly. Because in the traditional sense, those questions would be asked before relationship starts. But for those of us who live in diaspora, we meet people from all over the place. There's not an opportunity to do all of that. And so this young man, having lived in diaspora, comes to Nairobi, meets a girl, they start dating. Next thing, they have 2 kids. Now they're back home. He's coming to introduce his queen. And now lunch has been served, people have eaten. Now, excuse me, the father is now sitting and just asking questions. They're talking with the new couple. So the old man asks, young woman, where are you from? She says, I'm from XXX the village, and who are your parents, what not? And then she keeps asking, and they notice that the old man's face begins to turn. Because as this young woman is describing where she's from, it sounds like at that point the old man is sensing there's a problem. So then he asked, and what's your mother's name? And the moment the young woman said her mother's name, the old man nearly collapsed. The old man at this point realizes that this young woman is actually his own biological daughter. Many, many years ago, he actually sired a girl with a woman that they didn't end up getting married. And that sometimes can happen. Sometimes people have kids and then you go separate ways and life moves on. But he knew he had a child by a specific woman who came from a particular village. He, of course, at this point, he couldn't recognize because she's now a grown woman. So in this meeting, the old man suddenly realizes that his own son has brought home his own daughter, and these two have 2 kids. It was terrible. It was terrible, man. Because at that point, what do you do? They already have kids. What do you do? So this story to me just reminds me of the idea of making certain that the kids that we have outside there, whether it's in African cities or diaspora, we want to make sure that they know the people they are connected to, if at all that is possible. Because a lot of our kids don't even know their cousins. And I'm talking about immediate cousins. There are some of our kids who are born out there that have never been home, or even when they come home, they don't do the old proper introduction that we used to do. Because growing up as a kid, our folks made it a point that every December, everybody would come back to the village. You knew your cousins, you knew your aunties, you knew pretty much everybody within your network. Unfortunately, in the present world, for many, many reasons, that is no longer the case. Because first of all, it's very expensive to travel to Africa. And then secondly, kinship ties are not as strong as they used to be. I mean, I have cousins and I barely know even their own spouses. Honestly speaking, I don't even know my cousins' spouses. I would meet them somewhere, I would walk by without even knowing them. Because in part, people have drifted apart. And that sense of duty to family and staying tied is no longer what it used to be. So folks, if at all you live in diaspora and you have kids, you're raising kids, to the extent possible, even if you're using technology, you don't have to travel physically. Even when you're using technology, try and make sure that your kids know who their folks are. Because incest is real. And I'm talking about the accidental ones, not the ones that happen on purpose. These are things that are preventable when we make the effort to get people connected. If at all possible, please introduce your kids to who your people are. Not only would it help you prevent things like this, but it's even a good thing. Kids love to know who they are connected with. Because many of our kids, the people they call their aunties, their uncles, are just the folks they've met abroad. Because for many of us who live abroad, our friends become our kids' uncles and aunties. Everybody is an auntie and an uncle. And then their kids become cousins to our kids. In fact, it's actually interesting that when our kids grow up, they don't even ditch each other because they think they are actually related. When in fact, it's just the kind of families we create abroad. Everybody is uncle so and so, auntie so and so. But oftentimes, their relatives back in Africa are very much detached from them. So, folks, these things happen. So, I hope you learned something from today's discussion, and I'll see you in the next. Bye.